So the mindset shifts and having the right mindset, as we saw with the squirrel, as I mentioned with my friends that are in the at the seven-figure level and beyond in radical giving and helping lots of others and creating an amazing amount of abundance, all have they always put mindset first. And when you can look at what is the mindset piece that has held us back, what can we do differently in the future? And then the last part, and I think this last part is really key, and that is, how can we ensure that we will make this shift? That's why I love having the accountability partner. And this is something that a good friend of mine and mentor, Eben Pagan, taught me, and he called it inevitability thinking. Inevitability thinking. And what I love about inevitability thinking is, because I'm a procrastinator, I love to procrastinate. I can come up with so many creative ways not to do the thing that I am supposed to do. It's amazing. But one thing that I know is that if I do the thing that I'm supposed to do, if I create that marketing habit, and if I actually do it and implement it, that's going to make the biggest difference in my business and world. So I create some type of accountability for myself. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. It could be hiring a coach. That's what we do. I hire a coach to help hold me accountable. Another thing that I love to do is, if I know I'm going to create a new product, and the thing that just is really difficult for me, I drag my feet on creating the actual presentation. I drag my feet on creating the slides. I procrastinate. I do everything except the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, which is creating the content, the most valuable thing. So what Eben taught me is called inevitability thinking. He said, why don't you just schedule a webinar where you're going to deliver the content and invite 1,000 people. And then that'll motivate you to create the content. And the first time I heard that, I was like, can you do that? Is that legal? I'd never heard anybody say anything like that before. And so I tried it, and it totally worked. So what happened was, I knew I wanted to create a product, so before I created the product, I actually created the marketing, I created a webinar, and I drove some traffic. I did a bunch of marketing, and I got 1,000 people to register. And then I got really motivated, really fast, to create all the content that I needed to create. That's called inevitability thinking. Another example of inevitability thinking is I've been to 8 Olympics. The next one, where I'm taking my family, taking my wife and son, we're going to go to Rio coming up in August. And so if you have a dream, fantasy, experiential vacation that you want to take, you can schedule it out a good year in advance, and you could buy your plane ticket. You could, if you wanted to, buy a non-refundable plane ticket. That's what I do when I want to do some great experience. I'll book it out a year in advance. I'll block out my calendar, and I'll just pay for it, or I'll put down a non-refundable deposit. I know if I buy my plane ticket, I am going. That is an example of inevitability thinking. It's a way to ensure that you actually do what you want to get done. Who likes the idea of inevitability thinking to help you, motivate you, ensure get done what's supposed to get done? Good. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is how to find your customers by discovering their problems. Because you are now in the business of solving problems. Whatever business you were in before, you're now going to be able to find your customers quickly by identifying their biggest problems that you are uniquely qualified to solve for them now. So when you're finding your customers, when you can laser in on your customers' problems, you can laser focus on your customers' problems, you can create a valuable solution that they will pay you for. But it does require you to laser in and figure out what your customer's problem is. And understanding your customer's problem is critical to finding them. So remember when I said marketing is about the customer first? So marketing, a core part, or the essence of marketing, is understanding what your customer's problem really is. Understanding how they articulate their problem. And when you can articulate their problem better than they can, they will look to pay you for the solutions, for your solutions. So this is another thing that I learned from my mentor and friend, Eben Pagan, that I mentioned. Niches are actually needs. A lot of times people come up to me and say, hey, I want to be in the health niche. How do I go find those customers? Or I want to work with women, or I want to work with entrepreneurs or small business owners. And that's really backwards. Really, what we want to do is we want to find the problem first that you are uniquely qualified to solve. That's the thing that actually determines what your niche is, not the other way around. A need is a group of people with a similar problem, and that is what defines your niche. It's a group of people with a similar problem, and I'm going to go a little bit further, that you are uniquely qualified to solve. Your niche is a group of people with a similar problem that you are uniquely qualified to solve. And in order to figure out your niche, we must first figure out your need. The need itself is the underlying problem that people are willing to pay you to help them solve. That is the niche. So how do you figure that out? Well, you ask, and you ask, and you ask. So this is where creating the marketing habit helps you fulfill and find your customers. So if you're constantly creating the marketing habit and you're constantly asking your customers, you'll know exactly, because they'll tell you. They'll tell you what their problem is. They'll tell you what they will pay you for. They will tell you, here, if you can solve this problem for me, I will pay you money. And the most successful entrepreneurs, we never assume that we know exactly what our customer wants until we've asked, and they've told us, and they've paid for it. That's the proof that we got it right, is that they paid for it. They took out their credit card, they broke out their check, they actually paid for it. So we assume ahead of time, until we've gotten to that point, we assume that we don't really know, and we need to ask, and we need to keep asking, and we need to keep making offers until people are starting to pay for the solutions to their problem. Then we know. So we will ask, and we will create solutions in the form of products, services, coaching programs, the things that the customers are willing to pay for. It could be any kind of product, it could be any kind of service, it could be any kind of coaching program that people are willing to pay for. So when the customers buy those products, that's the proof. That's how we know we got it right. We don't know we got it right up front. We have to ask, and we have to ask, and we have to ask. But if you create the marketing habit, it can become easy. And if you create the mindset that it can be fun, you can really enjoy the process of really getting to know your customers, of really getting to understand what their needs are, their true desires, and what they're really ultimately trying to accomplish. And one of the most powerful things that I've seen is to get continuous feedback. So one of my favorite books, and I highly recommend this book, is called The Lean Startup. Who's heard of The Lean Startup? Who's heard of this book? Okay, get this book. I highly recommend this book, The Lean Startup. It's by Eric Ries. And this is something that Silicon Valley, some of the most successful companies in Silicon Valley, figured out how to get a business up and running off the ground and grow it very quickly and turn it into a very successful company with very little startup capital. That was really the key here, is how to reach success with very little money, how to build a business on a shoestring budget. And what they discovered is that, this is what my friend Lisa Sasevich says, and somebody else who said it at the microphone, that done is better than perfect, or good enough. You need to have your product or service or your program good enough so that you can launch it and launch version 1.0. You can launch version 1.0. So my first product that I created version 1.0, and I sold about $8,000 worth of that product. And then I went in and I completely messed with it without talking to any of my customers. I didn't ask anybody what was working, and I made some changes. And I released version 2.0, and I did exactly $0 in sales. And I asked my friends, well, what's going on? Why is it not working? They said, well, what did you ask your customers? And I said, what? Well, what was the feedback you got on version 1.0? I was like, I didn't get any feedback. They said, well, there's your problem. Go and ask your customers what they want and then give it to them. Then I released version 3.0, and we did $250,000 in sales. We released version 4.0, and we did over $450,000 in sales. And it was all because of the feedback that we got consistently from our customers. Here's version 1.0. Tell me what you think. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What problem does this solve for you? What other problems do you have that I can solve for you that I can put in version 2.0, and I can make it better and better and incrementally better? And so what I discovered is that I love quickly in creating version 1.0 of a product, and I test it and I get it out there and I get all the feedback and I go in and make some changes based on the feedback. I release version 2.0, and it's really version 3.0 that I'm going for a big release or a launch. And this is the lean startup model. This is the model that Silicon Valley figured out works really well, that you can start just about any business you want, just about any product, just about any service, just about any coaching program you want. You can release version 1.0 and just improve it and improve it and improve it. Who likes this idea that your first version 1.0 doesn't have to be perfect? Who likes that? Okay, I was a big fan of this, so I love this book. When we're discovering our clients' problems, we want to be able to use their words. Different people communicate in different ways, and groups of people will have their own words. So we have a lot of yoga customers because we have one of the largest yoga Facebook pages in the world. Yoga customers understand chakra and namaste and words like that. Whereas other people in other groups don't necessarily understand what those words are. Energy healers understand what light workers are. Online marketers understand what a lead magnet is, okay? So it's important when you're communicating with your customers and you're trying to understand what their problem, listen to how they articulate their problem. Listen to the specific words, the specific lingo that they use to describe their problem, so that when they are hearing back from you, your solutions, they'll immediately know, oh, you get me, because you know what a light worker is. You must get me already. You know what a lead magnet is, or you know you can use our lingo and our terminology. Wrong button. So this is critical. Understanding your customers' words and how they articulate it is critical to understanding their problem. And your goal is to understand their big problem, specifically the one that you are uniquely qualified to solve. So when you're asking your customers, what's your number one challenge, that needs to be in context. It needs to be in context of your solution. It needs to be context of your value of what it is that you do. And you want to be able to articulate your customer's problem much better than they can. And if you can articulate their problem better than they can, they will look to pay you for your services. And in order to do that, You need to speak with your customers. You need to talk with your customers. I have a lot of friends who are in the online marketing space, in the online business world, where the way that they want to get feedback from their customers is through surveys. And there's nothing wrong with doing a survey, but a survey cannot take place of having a one-on-one conversation with a customer. A survey does not replace interviewing your customers. A survey does not replace speaking on the phone to your customers. A survey does not replace having a live Skype call with your customers. In order for you to really know your customers, really understand their problems so that you can solve that, you will need to speak with your customers on a regular basis. And when you're doing that, when identifying your customers' problems, you don't want to just ask about any old problem. You want to ask the customer about the problem in the context that you can help them with. So I wouldn't, when I'm talking to a customer, I'm not going to say, what's your number one problem? I'm going to say, when it comes to growing your business on Facebook, what is your number one problem? When it comes to building your email list on Facebook, what is your biggest challenge? When it comes to finding high-end customers and getting them to schedule appointments on your calendar on a regular basis, what is your number one problem? So I didn't just say, what's your number one problem? I prefaced that question with what I'm uniquely qualified with. When you do that, you will find the right answer that has value. If you don't do that, if you just ask, what's your number one problem, you're not likely to get a valuable answer. So you really want to ask those questions. You have to ask those questions within context. And if you can do that, then you will be able to find your customer. So we have an exercise. Can we pass out the exercise, please? So in the exercise, what we're about to do right now is you're going to identify your top 5 specific problems that your tribe is facing. So I'm using the word tribe right now. And the reason why I'm using the word tribe right now is some of you have customers, some of you don't yet have customers. So your tribe will be people who you can add value to, who are likely to either become prospective customers or paying customers. This is your tribe. This is your group of prospective customers, the people who value what you do, the people who you can add the most value to. These are the people who you want to help add value to. So, first question is, what are the top 5 specific problems that your customer is facing? And do your best to use their words. And don't worry if you don't know exactly what they would say. Just do your best. Do your best to use their words. Question number 2. What are the specific repercussions to their life as a result of these problems? What are the specific repercussions to their life as the result of these problems? How do these problems negatively affect them? Remember, these are the problems that you are uniquely qualified to solve. How do these problems negatively affect their life? Last one, how do they feel as a result of these problems or challenges? And go into some detail here, because all buying, and you're going to learn this a little bit later, all buying is an emotional decision. All purchase decisions are emotional decisions. Understanding how your customers feel, what's the pain that they're in, and how do they feel? How would they articulate that? Understanding that is key, is absolutely key to understanding your customers and being able to articulate your solutions that they will pay you for. Okay? So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take 5 minutes just by yourselves. And could we get a little bit of writing music, please? We're going to take 5 minutes. And is that a clarification question on the exercise? Okay, go ahead and we'll ask the clarification question on the exercise.
The paper says, how do you feel?
Thank you. It's how do they feel. So that is a typo. Yeah, so it's How do they feel? Not how do you feel? Because frankly, when it comes to our customer, it doesn't matter how I feel, but it matters a lot about how they feel, okay? Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So if we can get a little bit of writing music, and let's take 5 minutes right now and do this exercise.